The topic for my presentation today is how impact investment and funding intermediaries work. I would like to thank Wahoo for joining us. He's a very important partner ever since we actually started discussing this program. And I would like to build on his presentation. So I think in any traditional form of fundraising, especially for many of us who came from universities and have done some fundraising of our own, we know that it's not an easy job. And what makes it difficult is actually the idea that fundraising is about asking people for money. It is certainly true. Up to any stage, there is a point of us asking for funds. But the work that goes into fundraising is far more than just going around with a Milo bottle or tin can asking for money all over the place. The idea here is that there are many ways we can contribute to a fundraising, and we all can choose roles that we are most comfortable with. It's exactly as like what Wahoo says, it's not always about asking for money. There are many ways we can raise funds, and crowdsourcing is one of the latest ways we can reach out to many people and amplify the reach of our message to get to people who believe in what we are doing, and actually, hopefully, they will link us up to others. So traditionally, we have always talked about philanthropy as donations for social benefit. They are not seeking any returns, other than what we call a pure social outcome or social benefit. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have businesses, and nowadays the boundaries are blurring. Many companies, through their corporate social responsibility programs, would like to show that they are not all about the bottom line. You have social enterprises as well, where we talk about triple bottom line, meaning that not just that it is making money, making a profit, also about creating a better environment as well as reaching social outcomes. We have social goals. So, what happened in the past 10 to 15 years, I would say, is the emergence of a new framework or model. This will be elaborated in greater detail in our next workshop session on impact investing. But the idea here is that it is actually possible for us to have financial return together with social and environmental impact concerns being addressed. It's not just about money all the time. We can do good while we actually make money. So from Inside website, this is a brief structure of how we actually view impact investing, where you are a charity or pure NGO or social enterprise. You actually can go into business. You can actually do something that generates income. Because as we all see, it is not possible, as Wahoo mentioned, for an NGO to just survive on one stream of income alone. That's crazy. Nobody does that. And if you depend on donations that might come in from time to time at an irregular basis, how are you going to provide programs on a daily or weekly or monthly basis? So this is why we say that when we talk about NGO funding, we must talk about a mix of sources. And for Malaysians, I think we are more familiar with these six kinds of income for NGOs. Membership dues, one of the most basic forms of income. Private donations, donations from individuals or donation from companies. Sale of goods and services, maybe somebody has the yard sale or bakery sale or whatsoever to raise funds. Investments is a little bit rare, but actually many of our big corporate as well as stronger NGOs in Malaysia, they own assets such as land, which they rent out, buildings, shop lots, that they use the money to fund their activities. Of course, we also talk about grants from non-government sources, whether it's an international funding agency or a local funding agency. And last but not least, everyone's favorite government funding. In Malaysia, we seem to think that if the government don't give us any funds, we'll die, and we can't do anything. So that is our problem, how to change mindset and show people that it's a whole jungle out there that you can tap into, you can work on, you can find partners. And I will share with you some examples in this short presentation today, some targets that you can try and think about. All right. So the idea here for NGOs, especially CSOs on aging, is to think about income generating activities. There's no free lunch. Nobody will give you money for nothing. So, and you receive the fund, you have a responsibility to spend it, to disburse it responsibly. So, whether it is from investments, if you have assets, or through donor funding, you have to think about sustainability of your income. So, I would like to start with a place which is roughly about, I would say, 10 years ago, when the agency Inovasi Malaysia was created by statute. It was meant to last for 10 years. So AIM has been closed now. But what they have done in that short time frame was actually to create a new landscape for this country in terms of social financing. We call it social financing because it is actually a fund for what we call NGOs, for social enterprises. It is also around the same time where Magic started in 2014. At that time, we are the first country in the region to actually commit a sum of money. I believe it was only about 3 million, if I'm not mistaken, into a social outcome fund where the government will match a successful initiative that's achieved its impact. So it is actually the government's paying for any successful initiative conducted by civil society groups that is backed by private funders, meaning private funders as in companies, banks, or any foundations. So what happened was that that is gone, but the idea lingered, and the people have actually moved to many different areas. The same people are still around, of course. They are now with Magic. And in 2020, due to the COVID-19 situation, the government revived the program, the Social Outcome Fund. Of course, it got a new name. It's called a Social Impact Matching Grant. And they give it actually almost three times the amount, 10 million, to support social enterprises and social innovation in Malaysia. For every ringgit earned through crowdfunding, the same grant will match that amount. I believe NGO Hub is one of the partners. Yeah, so Wahoo is nodding his head. So later you can go and harass him. Yeah. So, they give out matching funds to three types of entities: accredited social enterprises. If you are a social enterprise and you are registered and gone through the accreditation, you can get up to 500,000 ringgit. If you are a non-accredited social enterprise, you can get up to 250,000. But if you are just individual or other entities, NGOs, social impact-driven individuals and entities who are just getting started, you can get up to 20,000. Ample funds to start some small ideas and activities. And they give funding for a total of, I think, five categories of action: social impact, environmental, food safety, food security, health and well-being, social well-being, community income to generate programs to help low-income families to augment their household income, and also heritage conservation and preservation efforts. So this is currently active. And while it may look like a bridge too far for many of you, especially for those of you who are not even registered anywhere, but trust me, the landscape has changed so much that you have to think about why the government is doing this. I will show you some examples of funding, and we can elaborate from there the kind of developments that have happened over the years. I will start with, of course, my own university. Now, I think this has been around for at least 6 to 7 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Rahima. The knowledge transfer program was actually initiated by the Ministry of Higher Education. And at that time, eventually it was passed to USM to administer, but all the public universities in Malaysia and some private universities are invited to put in proposals, what we call for KTP, for knowledge transfer initiatives with NGOs, with the industry, or with community organizations. So there are two parties. It can be transfer of knowledge to industry, or it could be a transfer of knowledge to communities. And this grant has been around for years. And although the NGOs do not become the owner of the project, they are partners, but the grant does not go to them, it goes to the lead investigator. The issue here is that NGOs can be partners with universities in making use of whatever knowledge that they have to promote cybersecurity, to promote environmental issues, food security, health and medicine, energy security, as well as environmental water security. This has been around for years, and every year this grant will open, and the universities they will think about partners to engage in. So to me, this is an example of how the universities are supposed to play their role in actually working with industries and NGOs on achieving their outcome. All right. So another target is actually Yayasan Hassara. This is an example of a funding intermediary where it is an independent grant-making foundation established in 2015. Four areas that they fund: education, community development, environment, arts, and public spaces. And we just missed the window. If we had this workshop last year, we probably would be right smack in time. But it is open every year round. You can get a copy of their application form. And the beautiful thing about Yayasan Hassana is that they are not just a funding intermediary, but they also actually try to teach their NGOs who receive the grants on how to best deliver the impact of their program, the kind of documentation that they need to do. Even their application form is very detailed where they teach you how to fill it out. So this is another avenue. Of course, the government funds. I think some NGOs in Malaysia, elderly, are receiving this. It is actually a bantuan for Pertubuhan Sukarelawan Kebajikan, or we call PSKs. And these PSKs, they have to be at least in operation for 3 years, and they actually have to show that their program is welfare related. Not many are granted. As far as I know, the statistics is about 20 a year, 20 NGOs a year receive these grants. But this is what you can apply if the nature of your activities are related. Now, back to the private company foundations like Hong Leong, like CMB Foundation. Hong Leong Foundation has two programs. They have a community assistance program and they have a social enabler program. NGOs can apply for them. But the issue here is this is an example of a corporate social responsibility program. So in Malaysia, I think in the past 4 or 5 years, it is now required for all companies to disclose their CSR activities in their annual reports. So you have to imagine that all these private companies have to actually also provide some funds for corporate social responsibility activities. And there are always four domains. They include sports, include community development, and whatnot. The issue here is this: when people think about CSR funding, they don't immediately think about older persons. They do, however, give donations to old folks' homes. That's the most popular CSR activity that I've ever seen all these years. There's nothing else. So whether it's a lack of imagination or lack of effort on our end as a CSO to introduce new programs or new activities and seek corporate social responsibility funding, that is a challenge that we have to take up. Internationally, there are many. Toyota also has it. Toshiba also has it. Toshiba's International Foundation actually support NGOs. If you notice under the applications, it says non-profit organizations capable of performing the proposed project that has or will have a bank account in its officially registered name. So everything is linked. That's the reason why we say everybody should be a ROS registered organization. That's why you all should have your association's bank account. Then you can apply for all these grants. If you have neither of those, they can't give you individual funds on an individual basis unless you are a researcher, but that's a different purpose. So I have provided links to in these slides. I don't have much time to go through all of them. You can go through the websites and can you read through them. And I think you should have partners to help you to work through all these applications and go grab these grants. Why do I say this? Is because we need funding intermediaries, not just in the conventional or traditional sense. NGO Hub is actually a fantastic partner. Yayasan Hassana is a fantastic partner because they have the network to solicit corporate funding. And when they have this network of their own, you can tap into it, but it doesn't mean that you just do a online crowdfunding page and you just sit back and money will pour in. Nothing like that ever happens. You need to promote it, you need to circulate it into your own network. So when grant makers use intermediary organizations or regranters, they generally do so to expand their capacity, to broaden their expertise. But what impact do intermediaries have on grant making practices? So sometimes NGOs felt that when I work with a funding intermediary, there's so many reporting that I have to do. There are so many things that I have to work on. But that's precisely the challenge. If you do it once and you acquire the capacity to apply for a grant from proposal to presentation to completion of the project, you are actually developing the capacity of your NGO to do similar things in the future. So I would say this is something that we have to all work together on, especially when you need technical assistance or you need rather support in terms of physical infrastructure. A lot of people seems to think that, oh, we can't do all these programs because we don't have a building, we don't have a kitchen, we don't have a balai raya of our own or a physical setup. But think around you, you have more resources than you can imagine. You have many university partners, you have the college communities, you have so many assets lying around in your neighborhood that's underutilized. They will be happy to utilize it too. So what they need is actually people, and that's what NGOs have in abundance. Manpower, time, and passion. The most important things, of course, passion. You can get the people if you believe in what you're doing. So the fact is, I will end my slide fairly quickly. Older persons is often not a primary target of impact investment. Donations are mostly directed to old folks' homes. It's always directed to some welfare case. Very little of the programs are actually developmental. So our challenge here is that we need to engage new and old actors from traditional philanthropy. You know those clan foundations, Lim Foundation, Lee Foundation. We need to engage them. Hey, can you do more than just give out scholarships? There are so many things that we can do. Everyone can do. So, to the latest impact investing through social innovations that are sustainable, that's scalable, and that's replicable. Why do I emphasize the three words scalable, replicable, and sustainable? Because if I can do it, if some NGO can do it, another NGO should be able to do it as well. That's the only way we can make sure that whatever that we are doing can be enjoyed by others. So, what we should emphasize here in this session is that we need solutions, not handouts. If you have a program, if you have an activity, then look for funding to fund it. And if it is meaningful and is worthwhile, I'm sure people will be happy to put funds up for you to do it. So I will give you a takeaway information comparing what's happening in the region. The World Giving Index is actually a survey of philanthropy organizations. Over the past 10 years, they actually tried to assess, among ASEAN countries, who has a higher ranking in terms of the generosity of their community. And well, we rank somewhere in the middle, as usual. But we always say that Malaysians are a very generous society. So if we look at the World Giving Index and you look at donating money, yeah, we are doing quite well. We are pretty much near the top. More than half Malaysians happily donate money to their causes. But when it comes to volunteering time, look at how badly it has fallen and compared to the Indonesians. Maybe because everyone has more valuable activities or more valuable interests of their own. But this is where the differences lie. We are happy to pass out donations and money. We actually have a hard time trying to actually make a difference by contributing our personal effort, energy, and time. So I hope this will be explored more in the next workshop on people and manpower. But this is something for us to think about in general. So I will end here and thank you.